Hey guys, we are on to our first math lesson in digital learning, and today we are going to be learning about how do you read a clock. So we're going to be reading the book Time Ticks By, How Do You Read a Clock by Donna Loughran. So we're not going to read the whole book, but we are going to go through a few pages and really hit on the most important parts. All right, so for today's lesson, we are going to go over our expectations first. We're going to stay focused on the lesson. We're going to find a quiet spot to work. We're going to be prepared to use our brain, and we're going to listen and follow instructions. So same rules as in class apply, and you're going to get as much as you can out of the lesson if you just follow those rules. You need your brain, pencil, and a paper. Again, we already have our brain, so all we need is our pencil and paper. Go ahead and pause the video here and come back when you have your materials. When we begin our lessons, we always start with, what will I be learning and what will it look like? Those are the two most important questions when you start a lesson. So for our agenda today, what we're going to be doing, first, we're going to introduce the topic, which we already have done. Number two, we're going to do the concept development. So we're going to learn as much as we can about the clocks. 3, we're going to pause and answer questions. So as we read the book throughout, there will be time where we will pause the video just like last time and answer questions. And then our 4th one, we're going to reflect and go back to the whole point of the lesson. Our standards and outcomes, they are an I can statement, so I'm going to go ahead and read them. The first I can statement is I can tell and write time from analog and digital clocks to the nearest 5 minutes using AM and PM. Our second I can statement is I can skip count by 5s. I know we practice skip counting in class, and you're going to get a lot more practice today. So what will it look like? Well, it's going to be similar to the last time. You are going to have a piece of paper out, and you can number it just like I did on my piece of paper here. You're going to have number 1 for your first pause and think question, and then you will follow along with every question. So if it's a second pause and think question, you'll put a number 2 and answer right next to it. For your pause and think questions, you are going to first number your paper. Second, you're going to think about the question, and third, you're going to answer the question. So always remember, you have to think before you answer the question. The first thing that comes to your head may be correct, but give yourself a little bit of time to think over what is in your brain and then move it on to the paper.
What time is it? Our days are filled with special times. There's a time to get up in the morning. There's a time that school starts. Your class goes to lunch at a certain time. A bell rings at the same time each day to tell you that it is time to go home. At home, there may be a dinner time. There may be a time you can play outside. You make time to do your homework. And then there's bedtime.
All right, so we already went ahead and listened to our first page in our book. So now we're going to look at this picture of Michael Jordan. It shows him upset looking at a clock, and he seems pretty upset. So we're going to pause and think, and we're going to answer these questions. Has he missed an important time? Is he late? When was the last time you were late for something? What happened? You can be very creative with your answers. I just want you to think about a time you were late and compare that to Michael Jordan. How do you think he feels? Is he sad? Were you sad when you missed something? Let me know. Go ahead and answer the question, pause the video, and then start when you're done.
What do clocks do? Clocks measure time. A clock face has numbers around its edge. It has hands that move. The hour hand is a short hand. The minute hand is a long hand. So here's the hour hand and the minute hand. Clocks that have a numbered face and moving hands are called analog clocks. So this clock is an analog clock. A digital clock shows hours and minutes in numbers. A colon divides the hours from the minutes. What are some ways you can use to tell time? So we have a digital clock in our classroom that shows us what time it is all day long.
Now we can look at our left side, which shows some examples. We have our analog clock right here, and it shows us our hour hand, which is our small short hand. And then we have our minute hand, which is our long hand right here. Then we have our digital clock. We have the hours on the left side, and we have a colon in the middle that's going to separate our hours from our minutes. Our second pause and think question is, what are some ways you can tell time? What are the differences between the two? So what are the 2 ways we talked about telling time, and what are the differences between the two? Go ahead and pause the video, answer the question, and come back when you're finished.
Connecting to history. Zach was at his friend Toby's house late one Saturday afternoon. They sat with Toby's dad, Mr. Young. They were in his office. Mr. Young showed the boys an hourglass on his desk. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. Zach did. "It's an hourglass," he answered. "Right. And do you know when hourglasses were invented?" The boys sat silently. So Mr. Young continued. "Well then," he began, "let me explain. Think of the hourglass as an early clock. The first hourglass was probably made in the 1300s. The hourglass was also called a sand glass, a sand timer, and a sand clock. Factory workers used hourglasses to track time. Ministers used hourglasses to time how long they spoke in church. Sailors used hourglasses too. Each hour marked a time they were on duty. The time that passed was a sailor's watch or work time. Did you know, for over 200 years, people used pocket watches. In World War I, soldiers found it hard to use pocket watches in battle. Soldiers put leather strips around them and wore them on their wrists. They created the first wristwatches.
So above we have a video of an hourglass. Our third pause and think question is, in history, who used hourglasses and who used pocket watches? So if you need to rewatch the video, go ahead and rewatch the video, but I want you to answer those two questions. So pause the video, answer the questions, and then start it when you're finished.
Zach and Toby learn about time. Minutes and hours. That's cool, Zach said. I would like to be a sailor. Well, you can practice now, said Mr. Young. Today's sailors don't use hourglasses anymore. They read clocks. The clocks they use measure time in minutes and hours. We say a clock has a face. The face has numbers around it, but also has moving hands. The hour hand is short and points to the hour. It takes 60 minutes or 1 hour for the hand to move from 1 hour to the next. The minute hand is long and points to minutes on the face. On most clocks, minutes are marked in groups of 5. Noon or midnight. When the hour and minute hands are both on 12, the time is 12 o'clock. But there are 2 times we read as 12 o'clock. If it is 12 o'clock at night, the time is midnight. If it is 12 o'clock during the day, it is noon. All the hours between midnight and noon are in the AM. All the hours between noon and midnight are in the PM.
So going back to the page we just read, there is 60 minutes in 1 hour, which is really going to help us when we learn to read a clock. So in groups of 5, that is what the minutes are in, groups of 5. So before we left, we did learn about arrays, which put our numbers in groups. So I went ahead and did a repeated addition problem for us. There are 12 groups of 5 in an hour. So 5 plus 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 5 equals 60. So 5 12 times equals 60. Our fourth pause and think question is, how long does it take for the hour hand to move from 1 hour to the next? If you have forgotten this question, rewatch the small video and it will tell you. Go ahead and pause the video right here. When you have your answer, go ahead and press play. On this slide, we're going to practice skip counting by 5s. The directions say, listen to the song once, twice for fun, and try to sing along. After listening, write your numbers 5 to 60 by skip counting by 5s. On the side, I did give you a little bit of a hint, and I went ahead and put our numbers 5 through 60 by skip counting by 5. That'll help you sing along to the song.
We're in a hot air balloon, headed for the skies. We're counting how high we fly in groups of 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. And then we reached 60. Then we saw a blue jay as he was flying by. We asked if he would fly with us and count by 5. He said, "Excuse me, sir and madam, but I am just a bird. For me to count by 5s would simply be absurd."
Is he holding a pin?
We're in a hot air balloon about to take a dive. We're counting down to the ground in groups of 5. 60, 55, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, and finally 5.
Phew! We're alive!
We were scared from that ride. We were not the bride. Ourselves from finding a safer way to count by 5. I thought for a while, but a thought came to my mind. This time let's try to find a mountain we can climb. We're at the bottom of a mountain, and as we arrive, we decide to count our climb in groups of 5. 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and then we reached 60. Then we saw a bald eagle, he was hunting to survive. We asked him to come along with us and count by 5. He said,
well, I can't count, but watch out. Don't step on that branch. If you break it, you might start an avalanche.
Oh no! That can't be good!
we're at the top of a mountain, trying to stay alive. We're counting down to the ground in groups of 5. 60, 55, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, and finally 5.
You know, I like you, Ben, and I like counting by 5, but this time, let's play it safe and count while we skydive!
Let's get back to our questions.
Dinner time. The office door opened. Toby's mom stepped in. Time's up, she said. Zach, I thought you might want to stay for dinner. Your parents said it's okay. In fact, they said you could spend the night if you want. What do you think? She asked. I'd love to, Zach answered. Good. Toby's dad has made a special macaroni and cheese. It's in the oven now. It will be ready for 5:15. How long is that? Zach asked. I think I know, Toby said. Let's look at the clock. The hour hand will be a little past the number 5. If the minute hand is at the top of the clock, then we can skip count by 5 until we count to 15. What number will the minute hand point to on the clock when the time is 5:15?
All right, so I went ahead and drew an example right here. So it shows us at 5 o'clock right now, we have our hour hand, our small hand on the 5, and then we have our long hand, which is our minute hand, on the 12. So it's showing 5 o'clock right now. So Zach wanted to know how much longer that would be. So to get to 5:15, we know that every jump is going to be 5 minutes. So we can go from 12 to 1, that's 5. Then from 1 to 2, 10. And then from 2 to 3, 15. So that means the 1 stands for 5 minutes, the 2 stands for 10 minutes, and the 3 stands for 15 minutes. So we go ahead and look right here, and I went ahead and did a repeated addition problem for us to make it a little bit easier. 5 plus 5 plus 5 equals 15. So 3 groups of 5 equals 15. I gave us also another example picture of a clock, and this one went ahead and showed us each 5-minute interval on the clock. So we have our 1 right here, 5 minutes, 2, 10, 3, 15, 4, 20, 5, 25, 6, 30, 7, 35, 8, 40, 9, 45, 10, 50, 11, 55, 12, back to where we started. All right, so our 5th pause and think question is, what number will the minute hand point to on the clock when the time is 5:15? So we just talked about that up there. Think about that, pause, and answer the question, and when you're done, come back.
What comes next? Think about the things you do every day. Draw a chart. Draw 2 columns in your chart. In the first column, list the things you usually do each day. Start when you wake up. Finish when you go to bed. In the second column, tell what time you do each thing.
To make it a little bit easier, I went ahead and did an example for my real world example. So I went ahead and did my graph. I made 2 columns, And on the left-hand side, I put things that I do on a daily basis. I did 3 just to be simple, but you can do as many as you want. I put eat breakfast, eat lunch, and eat dinner. On the right side, I put what times I did those things. So for eating breakfast, about 7:30, to eat lunch, 12 p.m., and to eat dinner, 5:30 p.m. On the right side of my graph, I did an example clock. So I got a blank clock, and then I drew my time right here. I put 7:30. So I just put what was on my graph and I put it onto the clock. So the directions for this slide is draw a graph like described in the video. So draw 2 columns just like it asked you to. I made an example for you above. So if you are confused, go back to my example right here. Draw a clock for 2 of your events, so 2 of them. So maybe if you have eat breakfast and eat lunch, draw 2 clocks, one with your first time, one with your second time. Remember when making your graph that columns go up and down and rows go left and right. So if it tells you to do 2 columns, it's going to be just like this, up and down, 2 that go up and down. So go ahead and pause, work on this. When you are finished, come back to our video. So for our review, instead of me just putting a lot of information on one slide, I found a really fun video for you to watch. So listen to the song once, or again, twice for fun if you just want to replay it. The song reviews the material that we learned today. So on almost every single slide, it is covered in this video. If you have any questions after this, send them to me on Classroom Dojo or over text message. Let's get into the video.
I wanna tell you all about my Saturday, but before I do, listen, I've just gotta say 60 minutes make up every hour on the clock, and every number is 5 minutes. Tick-tock. In 12 groups of 5, 60 minutes make an hour. Now let me tell you of the day that almost went sour. Oh yeah. I was headed to the park, I decided to walk. As I left, I looked up and saw the time on the clock. The shorthand was after 9, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 groups of 5 meant it was 9:25. If you can skip count by 5 until time's 12, there will be no time that you cannot tell. Cannot tell. When the hour hands on a number and the minute hands up, we know it's o'clock, whether breakfast or supper. If the hour hands right between 2 numbers per se, it's half past the hour on 6:30 that day. With the long minute hand that represents the minutes go by, it's easy to tell time and you soon see why. Each number on the clock is 5 minutes a minute. If you skip count by 5 and tell the time, make it a split. After an hour of playing, I took my sidewalk chalk, thinking wouldn't it be fun to draw the time on a clock? Oh yeah. The hour hand was pointing just past 11. 2 groups of 5 was 10, so it was 11:10. 11:10. I remembered I had to meet my friend Lexi. Her house was far away, so I left in a hurry. A hurry.
AM starts at midnight, goes till noon. And noon is 12 p.m. PM starts at noon, it goes till midnight, boom. And midnight is 12 a.m.
I got to Lexi's door and then rapped, knock, knock. She entered the door and was pointing to the clock. The hour hand just after 12, the minute hand at the 4. 4 times 5 was 20 minutes. Her foot tapped on the floor. The time was 12:20 and she looked annoyed.
You said you'd be coming no later than noon.
Oh boy. When the hour hands on a number and the minute hands up, we know it's o'clock when the breakfast starts up. If the hour hands right between two numbers per se, it's half past the hour on 3:30 that day. With the long minute hand that represents the minutes go by, it's easy to tell time and you soon see why. Each number on the clock is 5 minutes a minute. If you skip count by 5, it's out of time, make it a split. We went to the movies and they bought us 2 tickets. The movie we went to see started right at 6. The hour hand just passed 6, the minute hand at the 1. She said,
It's 6:05, aren't we late?
and I was like, oh yeah. When we finally got a seat, she told me I was cute, but I'd eaten beans for lunch and they'd out a loud toot.
Here's a tip, stretch on the hour hand. Where on the clock does it land? The last number that went by tells you the hour of time.
On the way home we walked by the fishing dock. We looked up and saw that it was now 8 o'clock. My. The minute hand pointed up, the hour hand at the 8. She said,
My curfew's 8:15. Oh, great.
it's 8:15.
Oh, no.
So we went off in a hurry. We ran, we bounded to get Lexi home fast so she wouldn't be grounded.
Oh, yeah.
When the hour hands on a number and the minute hands up, we know it's o'clock when the breakfast starts up. If the hour hands right between two numbers per se, it's half past the hour on 10:30 that day. Yeah. With the long minute hand that represents the minutes gone by, it's easy to tell time and you soon see why. Each number on the clock is 5 minutes a minute. If you skip count by 5, it's out of time, make it a split.
All right, so it's time for a reflection. We are going to go over our I can statements just to make sure that we did cover them. Our first I can statement is I can tell and write time from analog and digital clocks to the nearest 5 minutes using AM and PM. Our second I can statement is skip count by 5s. Now we are going to move on to our pause, reflect, and record questions. These are our last 3 questions of our whole lesson. You have made it. So I'm going to read them to you first, and you're going to use these questions to reflect on today's lesson. Number 6, what 2 types of clocks did we talk about today? Number 7, why is it important to know how to read and write the time? And number 8, what is 1 question that you still have about reading or writing the time? So go ahead and answer those questions, pause the video, and play them when you're finished. All right, so you have made it to the end of the lesson and we are now finished, but remember that I still miss you so much and I wish I could give you a real hug, but ain't nobody got time for that right now. So until then, I'm gonna give you a huge air hug. I love you and I miss you. And remember, all of your answers for our lessons are due Friday, April 24th by 5 p.m. latest. If you want to turn them in before that, that is totally okay. Go ahead and send them to me over Classroom Dojo or text message. Until I see you again, bye.